Now we move on to Deep Dive, where each week we spotlight a major issue in Asia. And this week, we're looking at the very fascinating intersection of religion and technology.
That's right, Phoebe. And across Asia, a quiet shift is happening inside temples and the places of worship. Centuries-old traditions are beginning to meet modern technology as robots take on roles once carried out by monks and religious figures, from chanting scriptures to answering questions about life and philosophy.
And one country where this change is clearly visible is Japan. The aging population there is placing pressure on religious institutions, and humanoid robots such as Budoroid and Mindar are being introduced to assist with rituals and deliver Buddhist teachings. And while Budoroid is trained on vast scriptures to engage in philosophical dialogue, Mindar, which is modeled on the Bodhisattva of compassion, has been deployed at a centuries-old temple in Kyoto to give sermons.
And a similar approach can be seen in South Korea. A semi-automated robot monk named Van Hien, meaning the Eye of Truth, has been developed to perform ceremonial gestures, greet visitors, and discuss Buddhist teachings. Created by Dongguk University, the machine combines a willed base with arms programmed to mimic monastic movements, while its AI system is trained on vast databases of scriptures and sermons.
And meanwhile, in China, a small childlike robot named Xianer is helping to spread Buddhist teachings through interactive conversations, voice commands, and social media platforms as temples seek new ways to connect with the younger generation.
And heading further south to India, temples are also turning to technology, with robotic figures being used to bring religious stories to life. These high-tech robots are designed to recite Hindu scriptures such as the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedas, while also reenacting scenes from the epic Mahabharata, including characters like Krishna and Arjuna, offering worshippers a more immersive and engaging spiritual experience.
So while all of these innovations differ in form and purpose, they all point to a broader shift. As societies evolve, religion is not standing still. It is adapting, experimenting, and finding new ways to remain relevant in the digital age.
Now, let's take a closer look at one of the most visible signs of a warming planet: extreme heat. Over the past year, temperatures have surged across the globe, pushing many regions into record-breaking heat. According to global climate data, 2025 has become one of the 3 hottest years ever recorded, continuing an unprecedented streak of extreme warmth. In fact, the last 3 years alone now rank among the hottest in modern history. A clear signal that this is not a one-off event, but a sustained trend. What's more striking is that this heat is not just in the air. The oceans, which absorb most of the excess heat, are also reaching record temperatures, quietly intensifying the systems from below. So what is driving this surge in global heat? And more importantly, what does it mean for the way we live, work, and adapt in the years ahead? Let's take a closer look.
Welcome to The Point, your focus on what matters. And here we don't just recount the biggest headlines, we break them down to see the real-life impacts. I'm Huyền, and here is what we're looking at today. Now, in the first 3 months of 2026, Vietnam's agro-forestry fishery exports have shown clear signs of recovery, emerging as one of the economy's bright spots. And in the first quarter, total agro-forestry fishery export turnover reached $16.69 billion, up 5.9% compared to the same period last year. Agricultural products continue to lead exports, reaching $8.93 billion, up 4.1%. A notable result amid ongoing volatility in global agricultural markets. Now, the sector is also considered to have significant growth potential and remains relatively resilient to geopolitical uncertainties, thanks to its market orientation, which largely focuses on Asia. Several key commodities have maintained strong growth momentum. Fruit and vegetable exports continue to consolidate their position as a growth driver, reaching $1.54 billion, an increase of 32.1% year-on-year. Coffee exports reached 577,000 tons, worth $2.71 billion, up 12.6% in volume, but down 6.4% in value year on year. Now, in terms of market, China remains Vietnam's largest trading partner, accounting for 22.1% of total export turnover, particularly leading demand for fruit and vegetable imports. The United States ranks second with a share of 18.3%, while the European Union and Japan continue to be stable markets, contributing 12% and 7.1% respectively.
On behalf of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Vietnam, Party General Secretary Tô Lâm signed Conclusion number 18, dated April 2, 2026. The conclusion highlights key tasks and solutions for Vietnam's socio-economic development plan, national finance, public investment, and public debt management for the 2026 to 2030 period. The document sets out Vietnam's roadmap for the 2026 to 2030 period after the country met 22 out of 26 major socio-economic targets during 2021 to 2025. It outlines key benchmarks for the next 5 years in support of double-digit economic growth. Some of the most notable include GDP per capita of $8,500 by 2030, manufacturing and processing accounting for 28% of GDP, the digital economy reaching 30%, 1,655 kilometers of expressway to be completed by the end of the decade, 2 million operating enterprises, and a goal of placing Vietnam among the world's top 30 economies by GDP size by 2030.
Welcome to The Point, your focus on what matters. And here we don't just recount the biggest headlines, we break them down to see the real-life impacts. I'm Trần, and here is what we're looking at today. Now, in accordance with the Politburo's directive set out in the Conclusion Notice number 81, issued on July 18, 2025, on investment in school construction in border communes, hundreds of schools have been launched simultaneously across border areas nationwide. And according to the latest report, a total of 229 inter-level boarding schools have so far been launched and are currently under construction, with some already in operation. Conclusion Notice number 81 of the Politburo clearly sets out the objective of building schools across all 248 land border communes nationwide over the next 2 years. The government's action plan to implement Conclusion Notice number 81 of the Politburo also targets the completion of 100 schools by August 30th this year, in time for the new academic year.
Xin kính chào quý vị đến với chuyên mục Hướng về Tổ quốc của Ban Chỉ huy Đối ngoại Đài Truyền Việt Nam. Thưa quý vị, trong một thế giới biến động nhanh và khó lường như hiện nay, năng lực tự chủ của mỗi nền kinh tế đang bị thử thách trực tiếp. Từ xung đột địa chính trị cho đến áp lực năng lượng và cả đứt gãy chuỗi cung ứng, mọi yếu tố đều tác động sâu tới tăng trưởng và ổn định vĩ mô. Với Việt Nam, yêu cầu đặt ra không chỉ là thích ứng mà là chủ động tái cấu trúc để phát triển nhanh và bền vững hơn. Một giai đoạn mới đang bắt đầu, bộ máy thì đã được kiện toàn, mục tiêu tăng trưởng 2 con số cho giai đoạn 2026-2030 đã được xác lập. Nhưng tăng trưởng bằng cách nào, dựa vào đâu và duy trì được bao lâu thì đó mới là vấn đề cốt lõi. Bài toán lúc này là cần phải cân bằng giữa hai trục, đó là củng cố nội lực của nền kinh tế, đồng thời mở rộng không gian phát triển thông qua hội nhập sâu rộng vào nền kinh tế toàn cầu. Kỳ họp thứ nhất Quốc hội khóa 16 đã chính thức khai mạc, hoàn thiện bộ máy lãnh đạo chủ chốt. Đây là bước khởi động quan trọng cho cả nhiệm kỳ, đồng thời mở ra giai đoạn bản lề thực hiện 2 mục tiêu 100 năm. Từ nền tảng đó, đâu là những quyết sách then chốt để đạt được mục tiêu tăng trưởng 2 con số trong 5 năm tới? Chúng tôi sẽ cùng phân tích trong chương trình ngày hôm nay. Vâng, kỳ họp thứ nhất Quốc hội khóa 16 không chỉ mở đầu nhiệm kỳ mới mà còn là dấu mốc xác lập kỷ cương thể chế, định hình phương thức phát triển và củng cố niềm tin cho giai đoạn mới. Mục tiêu tăng trưởng 2 con số bền vững vừa là yêu cầu phát triển, vừa là thước đo năng lực kiến tạo của Quốc hội. Quan trọng hơn, đó còn là phép thử rõ nét về bản lĩnh, trí tuệ và trách nhiệm hành động của Quốc hội trước đòi hỏi phát triển của đất nước trong kỷ nguyên mới. Trước đó thì vào ngày 3 tháng 4, Tổng Bí thư Chủ tịch nước Tô Lâm đã ký ban hành kết luận số 18 của Ban Chấp hành Trung ương Đảng đặt ra định hướng cho kế hoạch phát triển kinh tế xã hội giai đoạn 2026-2030 với mục tiêu rất là rõ ràng, đó là tăng trưởng ở mức 2 con số. Theo đó thì tăng trưởng GDP bình quân là từ 10% trên một năm trở lên và được xác định là mục tiêu xuyên suốt, đi cùng với yêu cầu giữ vững ổn định kinh tế vĩ mô, kiểm soát lạm phát và bảo đảm các cân đối lớn và không để xảy ra khủng hoảng trong mọi tình huống. Đây là mục tiêu cao, áp lực lớn nhưng không có nhiều dư địa để có thể lựa chọn khác.
Now we move on to Deep Dive, where each week we spotlight a major issue in Asia. And this week we're looking at the situation in the Strait of Hormuz.
The timeline is as follows. In the narrow blue throat of the Strait of Hormuz, a giant oil tanker named Pacific Dawn slowed to a stop on March 1st, 2026. Iranian patrol boats blocked the lane. The captain radioed, "We cannot pass." Within hours, a further 250 ships were anchored or turning back.
In normal times, the strait carries 21 million barrels of oil per day, which is about 60% of Asia's crude imports and 30% of its LNG. And as a result, this full closure ordered by Iran on March 6th, following U.S. and Israeli strikes, immediately triggered a severe energy crisis across Asia.
And the impacts can be felt by all. Indian oil import costs have already surged by 112%. Pakistan's fertilizer prices have jumped 150%, crippling wheat and rice farmers. Vietnam's factories have lost all Middle East LPG supplies, affecting steel, textile and footwear production. The Philippines has declared a state of emergency after fuel protests turned violent. South Korea's reserves may only last 60 days.
Hello and welcome to Vietnam 360. Today we ask a question that sits at the heart of Vietnam's economic future. Vietnam's GDP today is around 514 billion US dollars, roughly comparable to the annual revenue of a single global company like Amazon. But there is a striking difference. Amazon generates that revenue with about 1.5 million workers. And Vietnam generates the equivalent revenue with 57 million workers. So this gap reveals something fundamental. Vietnam does not lack workers. Vietnam lacks productivity per worker. So the question is simple. How does Vietnam turn a large labor force into a high productivity economy? And what must change in education, industry, and policy to make that happen? To explore this question, we speak with Sam Van, founder of SRO Partners, former New York Stock Exchange, whose recent strategic brief examines Vietnam's economic trajectory between 2025 and 2030. Welcome, Sam, to Vietnam 360. Hello, how are you?
Great. Thank you, Lena, for having me here.
It's a pleasure.
Likewise.
Yes.
Truly.
Welcome to The Point, your focus on what matters. And each week, we don't just recount the biggest headlines, we break them down to see the real-life impacts. I'm Truyền, and here's what we're looking at today. Now, Earth Day 2026 falls on Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. And the theme for 2026 focuses on the role of the community in environmental protection, energy, and economic sustainability. With its abundant renewable energy potential and strategic geographical location, green hydrogen is emerging. Now, with its abundant renewable energy potential and strategic geographical location, green hydrogen is emerging as a pillar of the nation's energy transition. The development of hydrogen energy in Vietnam is a key priority and is integrated into the country's plan to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. So in this edition of The Point, we will discuss the opportunities and challenges for Vietnam as it seeks to become a hub for green hydrogen production and export. But first, here are some of the week's key headlines. Now we turn to this week's focus. Hydrogen is the first element in the periodic table and the most abundant element in the universe. When the term hydrogen is used in the energy sector, it refers to a simple molecule of two hydrogen atoms, H2. Now, creating molecule hydrogen uses a lot of energy, and splitting it apart releases that energy again. And this means that producing hydrogen and then using it works a little like charging and discharging a battery. While hydrogen is often referred to as the fuel of the future, it is only renewable hydrogen that can play a role in our net zero future. Now, the good news is renewable hydrogen is available now, and it is an opportunity multiplier that will help unlock other green industries, such as green iron and ammonia, and end industries' reliance on fossil fuels. Experts say that Vietnam possesses all the essential components to produce green hydrogen, and combined with its vast marine resource advantages, the country has the potential to become Asia's hub for green hydrogen development.
Hanoi is piloting a low-emission zone banning petrol motorbikes in a 0.5 square kilometer area, starting mid-2026. The plan expands through 2027, and by 2028 it could cover the entire Ring Road 1, covering more than 26 square kilometers and home to approximately 625,000 people. If successful, this would transform a city where motorbikes make up 95% of transport, and potentially it could scale nationwide across one of the world's largest two-wheel markets, with around 77 million motorbikes by 2024. This shift is creating a major opportunity for electric motorbikes. Even before the pilot begins, Vietnam is already seeing a surge, ranking third globally, with EV sales growing over 150% in 2025. Investors and manufacturers are moving fast to capture this momentum. Let's take a closer look.